thank you, Paul, for joining us on Being Black in Britain. I'm really excited to explore your journey, who you are, what you do, why do you do it, and what we should be looking out for in terms of your body of work. We heard you've got a podcast, but just before we begin, can I ask you to introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do? Where are you based?
Yeah, so I am Paul Olubayo. I'm Race Equality Officer for Education at Liverpool City Council. That's my current job. I'd say to everyone, really, my job is I'm a human rights advocate.
Right.
I'm a social change advocate. So that's really who I am, what grounds me. So I'm based in the city of Liverpool. We do our work with all of our schools and really all of our education providers in the city to find ways in which we can improve racial equality throughout the education sector that we have in the city and really create the best, most inclusive environment for all of our young people, which is really what we're all striving for. So
Indeed.
That's me in a nutshell right now.
Indeed. Now, you say you're in Liverpool, but that accent's not a Liverpool accent, Paul.
No, this accent's well-travelled, I like to say. So I'm born in Manchester.
Okay.
I currently live in Manchester, but I was raised in Milton Keynes.
Right.
And I was raised in a particular area of Milton Keynes, which isn't the best.
Okay.
And so it's really where my passion for social change comes from, just the environment that I was raised in. But yeah, I was raised in roundabout town, Milton Keynes, but also then I've lived in America for multiple years, studying. So yeah, very much a well-traveled accent. But if I'm here if I'm in Liverpool for too long, then the Scouse accent starts to come out. It starts to come out, yeah, just a little bit, but they don't like it.
Indeed, indeed. So how then did you choose Liverpool?
That's a great question. I was looking for a role in racial justice and racial equality. Prior to this, I started this role August 2022. Okay. And prior to this, for the 2 and a bit years prior, really since the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, I'd been working freelance and ad hoc on issues of racial justice and racial equality, just in various different settings. So with universities here in the UK, with schools here in the UK, the schools that I went to, but also universities in America that I was connected to and tied to, and different pieces of work there, different pieces of community activism back home in Milton Keynes as well. So I was doing all of these things on the side from what was then my full-time job. Then I saw the role that Liverpool was advertising, and it is a brand new role, first of its kind for the city. And I felt, one, it was the perfect marriage to bring what I was doing in my freelance to make it my full-time, which was what I wanted. But also there was a real opportunity there. Liverpool is a city that, before I even got here, I knew of Liverpool's history as having the oldest Black community in England, being a naturally diverse city, one that's celebrated for its diversity historically. And I think we've seen that even just over the past year with the celebration of Eurovision and different things that have gone on in the city as well. So when I saw that, and I saw the opportunity to really lead a movement within schools, within the education sector, to make it as equal and as equitable as possible, it seemed like the perfect role. And for whatever reason, a couple people believed that I was the right person to do it. So we're still here, going strong.
I like that. And I guess looking at the sector that you're in, was that always the direction you wanted to go in terms of activism within the education space? And if so, why? Why education?
Always wanted to go into no. I really wanted for a long, long time to stay away from the education sector. But I think this is something many people know and accept, that if you want to make change, it starts with young people because of the energy and enthusiasm that they have. I think particularly around an issue like race and racism, if we look at the Black Lives Matter movement that we had in the summer of 2020 following the murder of George Floyd, so much of that was driven by the energy and frustration of young people. And so much of what we saw, where people were calling out their education providers, calling out the curriculum, looking for change, was young people or people who had gone through our education system in this country reflecting on their experiences and saying, we can't let this continue. If we really want positive, lasting change, it's not going to come from statements that businesses are making or corporations or politicians. It comes from let's start in the schools, educate our young people, prepare them for what is a multicultural, diverse world, equip them with those skills of acceptance and celebration of culture and diversity, and let them take it forward. And then on top of that, like, we have a cohort of young people, not just in Liverpool, but really I think across the country, who are just so much more accepting of different cultures and different communities, and you want to grow that and enhance that, and you need an education system and sector that reflects that and enhances that as well, I think.
I absolutely agree with that. And I know you recognise that kind of attitude and the sort of the mindsets of the young people in facilitating that change and advocating for. But when we then think of sort of the older generation, the adults in the room, would you say that you see that same level of enthusiasm? So I'm talking school leaders, those that work across the education space in all different kind of roles. Do you see the same energy and enthusiasm towards that change?
I really do. And people always, bat an eye or wonder when I say that, because it rings different to what their reality is. But I really do. From the circles that I'm in and the people that I speak with, I think the hiccup has always been a not knowing how, not knowing what that first step is. And even for myself, like, I came into this role, this role that I've had now is my first role in education. As I mentioned, it's my first role at a local authority. So working within those two different systems, right? So sometimes I don't even know the how. It's a learning journey. But I always say, as long as your foundation is strong and you understand why you're doing it, why it's important, which the adults in the room do, they recognize it, and they recognize that now is the time for change. Well, years ago, it's the time for change, really. But they recognize the moment that we have now and the opportunity that we have for change. And that's why so many of them have been so eager to join on to some of the things that we're trying to do at the City Council. And even going that next level further of increasing their own learning, increasing their own understanding, and taking those steps, which I think can only yield positives going forward.
Indeed. And this is a bit of a personal question. You can choose to pass if you don't like to answer this. But in your role as a Black man sitting in this position where you get to advocate and pursue this degree of activism, do you feel like you have sufficient power to leverage the tools and resources at your disposal to push for the change that you want to see?
Yeah, because the biggest tool and resource that I have are the young people in the city.
Okay.
And it's utilizing them. And I think one of the things that we forget, and I think gets lost in when we talk about education discourse, and I know this as someone who went through the education system in this country, is that we do it for the people in those classrooms. Like, I said this to someone the other week, like, every single thing I do in this role now doesn't affect me. I'm not going back to school. Like, there's not gonna come a day where I'm sat in a GCSE classroom, right? So everything we're doing now isn't for me. All the learnings and extra learnings that the teachers that we have in Liverpool are going through isn't necessarily for them. It's to create the best environment for the young people in those classrooms now and the young people that will come through those classrooms. And it's utilizing their energy, their wants. And that's why I always say is that we're doing this because those young people are calling out for it. So much of the things that we are looking to do at the council level is based on conversations I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have with so many of Liverpool's young people who have been able to reflect on their education, look at the positives and negatives and say, we need more of this. We need to see more of this. We would like our school to be more representative of its community. And it's okay, we'll put a plan in place to try and make that a reality. And so really, I always say the best resource I have, and similarly, the best resource teachers have and schools have, are the young people that are sat in there with the opinions that they have, especially because, one, this generation of young people and this generation of students are a generation of students who have had social media since the day they were born. Which means they've always been opinionated. They've always had a forum to voice their opinions. And then you double that with it being Liverpool's young people who are just naturally opinionated anyway. So utilize that energy, utilize those opinions, and provide that positive space to actually allow them to influence the change that they want to see.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, because I feel like it's a matter of perspective there in your answer, because I feel like I speak to a lot of people that are in this space, and there's a lot of frustration where it feels like no matter how much work and graft you put into trying to facilitate that change, you always feel like you're coming at a loggerheads with people, places, spaces, policies, whatever it might be. But you pointing to where that change occurs, it almost alleviates a whole burden of stress trying to change everybody.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things I've learned throughout my years doing advocacy and activism in various different spaces, like not just on issues of race, is one, you have to treat the small victories like you've just won the World Cup.
Word.
If not, you're not going to get anywhere. You'll just keep feeling like you're banging your head against the wall.
Yeah.
So anything that people think is that really making change, you have to celebrate it, because if not, you will not survive till tomorrow. That's one. And then two, and I say this all the time, so if there's anyone who's heard me speak during this job, they'll know what I'm about to say. I say this all the time. It's a journey. And it's the worst type of journey, because it's a journey with no end point. You never reach your destination. You're always getting there. You're always on the road, right? It's always, are we there yet? Not quite. Yeah. And it's also the type of journey where things will be going smoothly. You'll be driving, going down, cruising, nothing's wrong. Something will come out left field, knock you off track and knock you 3 steps back. Right. And it's about course correcting, reviewing, okay, what did we do wrong here? How can we get back on the right track and going again? And so that's the approach I take. That's the journey I'm looking to take our schools on in Liverpool. And I think, in doing that, I think we'll be able to see some positive change.
I like that. That's really exciting. Outside of work, though.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you, Paul.
Okay.
How do you balance a heavy piece of work such as this, where you are engaging in quite an emotionally taxing occupation, but how do you balance that with just the rest of life? Do you feel that work takes a better part of who you are, what you do, and when you do it? Or do you find an ability to balance commitments, responsibilities, relationships, all the above?
I do. I find that balance. And I think it's because for me, like if I wasn't doing this job, I always say to people when, especially, and I've said this a lot following like the Black Lives Matter movement 2020, when people are asking, well, what can I do? What can I do? I always say, you don't need to make human rights activism your 9 to 5, but you can make it your 5 to 9, right? And so for me, if I wasn't doing this as my 9 to 5, quote unquote, it would be my 5 to 9.
Right.
So now that it is my full-time 9 to 6, 9 to 7, like we know how work goes, right? Now that it's that, I've been able to find ways to just disconnect from it when I'm outside of the job, because you need to. I think the worst thing you can have in activism is a burnt out activist, because you will not only do harm to yourself, you'll do harm to the communities that you're trying to serve. And I studied human rights. And so one of the first tenets of humanitarian principles is to do no harm, not only to the people that you're working for, but to yourself also. So I take that very literally. I take that very seriously. And so because of that, I've learned the measures I need to balance things.
Okay.
But it is a learning journey. And I say that to people who are getting into activism and activism themselves, because I think one of the hardest things is you want to change everything.
Of course.
You want to change
the whole world.
You want to change the whole world, and you just can't do it. Like I think, I don't know what it is about my makeup, but I'm not big-headed enough to believe that I can change the whole world if no one else has done it, right? So, but I know that there's things I can affect, and I do that, and I affect the things I can affect wholeheartedly. And that's what I can do.
It's more than enough.
Yeah.
It's more than enough. You used a certain word there when you were talking about your work-life balance. You said you do certain things to disconnect.
Yeah.
What does disconnecting from the 9 to 5 look like for you?
Music.
Okay.
Music, full stop. That it's in a different life. I'm a singer right now.
Oh, okay.
But I can't sing.
Do you want to give like a quick solo before you...
That's the one problem, is I can't sing. If I could sing, that's the problem.
Okay.
But no, it's music. I'm a big music head.
Right.
So I use music for a lot of different things. It psychs me up in the morning when I need to get through work. It's how I mellow myself out when I've had a stressful day, or I just need to calm down and leave work in the office and go away from it, it's through music. I use music to meditate. I use music as a form of conversation.
Right.
I have a podcast based around music, where like I share my opinions and expressions. So it's music and sports. Music and sports are my big ones. But then also just various things. Like I say, I because of the taxing nature of the work and all human rights work and all activism that I do, I try as best I can to find escapes outside of work, to make sure that, again, you're not burning yourself out and you are the best version of yourself.
Indeed.
Every time you step into the office, every time you step into the community, and you have to do work because you have to be. Otherwise, you're not doing yourself justice, you're not doing the role justice, you're not doing the work justice. So that's me.
Lovely. There was one more word there that you used, talking about identifying these or utilizing measures to know where you're at. What measure do you use to know when you're on the brink of a burnout, and how do you then backtrack to ensure that you are in that good place to give work and give everything 100%?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm lucky. I'm blessed in the sense that for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, because I'm complete opposite of my mother in this way. I'm not a stressful person. Right. I don't get stressed. I'm very calm, very measured, even in the face of really like difficult situations and difficult things. So when I notice you're getting stressed here, that's when I know you're on the brink of burnout and you're veering too far. And it's just something lucky I have. I think it's what enables me. I think it's a strength that enables me to do this job, is that I'm able to just look at things with a calm head at all times. So those moments where I realize, hold on, this is eating into you a bit more. You're feeling a bit more stressed. You're getting a bit more anxious on these things, which typically 364 days of the year wouldn't stress you like this. Okay, we're reaching that burnout point, and now we probably need to take some leave, take a couple of days off, park this specific issue to the side for a week, come back to it. But I'm lucky in that sense. Other people, they're naturally stressy people, and so it's harder to find that balance. I will be
those other people.
So it's harder to find that balance. But I think for me, because I had just had that natural ability to say, okay, in everything, calm, tranquilo, relax.
I love that.
But yeah.
Okay. I put that down to a personality type, because I feel like I have a tendency towards allowing myself to be overwhelmed and stressed.
Yeah. But I think I've learned it's what works for the individual.
Yeah, indeed. Now, finally then, I want to wrap up with the one word that we've been using about 500 times in this conversation. It's the word activism. In your own words, can you define what is activism?
That's a great question. And I don't think I can, because I think activism takes different forms depending on the issue. And I say this to people all the time, like there's not a one way of doing activism. It will change. And I'll stick on race. I'll stick on the issue of racial equality. When we looked following the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, the main major form of activism that I think we saw throughout the world, there were two. It was protesting, so marching on the streets, people going out in their hundreds, in their thousands across the world, marching on the streets with their signs in mass, showing their support. And then there was social media activism, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. So some people, myself included, I couldn't leave the house. I was in the house with an infant child. I wasn't going out to a protest with thousands of people. But what I could do is I had a platform where, for whatever reason, people take my word as something that they listen to and they care about. So when I was very cautious of things I was tweeting, the information that I was putting out, I was making sure it was from correct sources.
Right.
I was using my platform to get rid of the disinformation that was coming out,
a lot of that.
Which was coming out, but then also using it as a vessel to advocate. So letting people know these are the organizations you can donate to. These are the avenues of change we can look at. These are the petitions you need to be signing. These are the politicians you need to be reaching out to, right? Fast forward to August of 2023. I don't think social media activism on race is where we are, right? And so now if we're looking at it, well, what is it that we need to be doing? Should we still even be protesting? I don't think so, because I think we've done the protesting. Yeah. So for now, for me, activism is I get to sit in a lot of rooms with a lot of high value people around decision making and policy. So now it's about that activism around policy and understanding what policies are out there, what aren't out there, what needs to be out there, and that's the discussion. So it's hard to define what activism is, but I think it's always looking at ways in which you can push the boundaries for change. But that will take different forms depending on what the issue is, depending on what the time is, depending on how many people you have pushing for that change. So
I really like that. The different ways in which you may push the boundaries for change. That's really, someone needs to do a written piece on that. Iman, we're doing a written piece on that. Pushing the boundaries for change, that's wonderful. Now, thank you very much for your time there, Paul. For those that might want to reach you, engage with you after today, how can we access you?
Yeah, so obviously on all social medias, it's just Paul Olubayo, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, are the best ways. You can stay connected with everything we do really at the council, through Liverpool Council's social medias as well, because we'll have a lot of things that we're looking to promote in the next year or so with pushing racial equality in our schools going forward. And just we're really excited about the journey that we're going on as a city, because we really think there's some positives coming there.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll put that in the description for people can click on. Brilliant. Thank you very much, and we'll see you another time.
Bye.